Alrighty folks, CJ here with the Straight Vape again, coming back at you. And today, what I got for you, I don't know, this might be a little controversial, but I'm going to talk about the Noisy Cricket. Some do's and don'ts, some build safety, battery safety, just overall safety on the Noisy Cricket. And this is pretty much universal for most mechanical mods, and I guess more specifically series mech mods. But before we get into that, don't forget, join CASA.org, notblowingsmoke.org. Follow their calls to action. We have to fight for our vaping rights, because the FDA is basically trying to wipe it all out. And if they succeed, then this video and everything else all the other videos I've produced, yeah, pretty much pointless. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this this Noisy Cricket safety how-to, what have you. Let's do it. Alrighty, boys and girls, here she is, the Noisy Cricket. So the Noisy Cricket is a it's a series mechanical mod, which means that the batteries are oriented in here in a series fashion. Series basically means that the positive and negative are connected together like so. Okay, in a parallel mod or parallel mech mod or whatever, parallel basically just means the positives are connected and the negatives are connected, you know, to get the mod working. In a series, it's positive to negative. Okay, batteries can be hooked up either way. When they're parallel, you're doubling the amount of amperage out and the capacity. So if these are 3,000 milliamp hours, so you would essentially get a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and if they're 20 amp batteries, you'd essentially get 40 amps. But the voltage would stay at 4.2, which is the max voltage of a single cell. In series, basically you double the voltage, so now instead of 4.2 you get 8.4 volts. The current stays the same, so if it's a 20 amp battery, then you still only get 20 amps, that's all you get. And the capacity stays the same, so if it's 3,000, you still only have 3,000 milliamp hours. So only the voltage is doubled in series, okay? So that's just basic electronics. And I actually do have a degree in industrial electronics, so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, you know, specifically Ohm's law, which we're going to get into. But so a couple things about the Noisy Cricket. It's an awesome mechanical mod. It's very simple. It's made by Wismec, designed by Jaybo. It's like 20 bucks, so it's a very, very inexpensive way to get into mechanical mod. Mechanical mods are desirable because there's not really much to go wrong with them. Except when things do go wrong, they can go horribly wrong. And make no mistake about it, mechanical mods are not for beginners. You need to have some knowledge, and I'm not saying that someone new can't learn quickly, but you need to have some knowledge of Ohm's law, of basic electronic stuff. You need to have knowledge of how to build on an RDA. You need to you have to understand what a hybrid connector is, because that's what this particular mod uses. Okay, so let's start with let's see, what should we start with? So we talked about batteries already. So basically, Kent from Twisted Messes has already done a Noisy Cricket video about battery safety, so I'm not going to go too much into that. Maybe I'll post a link to his video in my description here. But basically, it doesn't matter if you put the batteries in parallel. If you put them in, both the same direction in this, it just won't work. So you have to put one in upside down, one up, one positive up, one negative up. Now, the important thing to note here is it doesn't matter. You can take these off, the button and the hybrid connector, and they're interchangeable either way. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you put positive up here or positive up here. As long as you have positive up, or positive up, negative up, that's fine. And once you do that, once you have, let's say, positive up, like I just put in there, the hybrid, the atomizer, the hybrid connector has to go on the positive side. Doesn't have to, but for safety's sake, you want to put the hybrid connector on the positive side, okay? So, that's what determines where your button or your addy is. They're both interchangeable. It's omnidirectional. It doesn't really matter. But once you put a battery in, that's what's going to determine where your button or where your addy goes. So positive addy, negative button always. Okay? Now, the reason that there's so much hullabaloo over the noisy cricket is two reasons. One, it utilizes a hybrid connector. So a hybrid connector is basically just an adapter, if you will, that screws onto the bottom of your atomizer. Okay, so I'll just screw this on real quick. I'm not going to do any up close stuff. You guys already know what this is. So there you can see the bottom of the atomizer. Let's see if I can get this tilted so you can see it. The bottom of the atomizer there is sticking through this hybrid connector. Okay, and the hybrid connector's just got this really thin, it's probably really hard to see, but it's just got a really thin piece of insulation there, and that's it. So the battery is actually contacting the atomizer directly. Boop, just like that, okay? The problem comes in with this hybrid connector is when the pin on your atomizer, because the way the atomizer works is the threads and the base of this atomizer are all negative, okay? The only thing that's positive is that gold pin that you can kind of, let me get this angled just so. The positive pin right there is positive. That's what connects to the positive part. So if that pin doesn't protrude enough, which I'm not going to be able to get enough focus on there, but if that pin doesn't protrude out enough, it is possible that the top of this positive pin can actually fold in, and it can short. The positive pin or positive part of the battery can cross across or touch across the pin, positive pin, and the outside lip of those threads. So then you have what you have there is a dead short, because the negative part is through the mod is connected to the negative. So if you get a short between the positive and negative, which you have right here, then you have boom, then you have explosion. Okay, so you have to make sure that the pin on this atomizer is protruding out enough so that when if you cranked it down too tight, which you don't want to, you just want it to be snug anyway, but when you crank it down, that it can't, even if it dented in the top of that positive on the battery, that it couldn't short across there. So that's part of the issue with noisy cricket is the hybrid connector. Never ever use a tank. I mean, I suppose if the pin was really protruding, you could, but I just wouldn't risk it. So that's part of it, the hybrid connector. The other part that is an issue is because this is unregulated. You basically have a button, 2 batteries, and the atomizer. There's nothing, no protections. There's no fuses, nothing like that as a safety. Is when you hit that button, which is, it doesn't have much of a throw at all. I mean, you know, it's just very little, and that's your adjustment basically is how much that throws. Is if you have a build on here that's too low of an impedance, you're gonna basically discharge those batteries super quick. Now, Battery Mooch has, and I'll put a link to him in his Facebook. He's got a great chart, and he does all these tests. He's like the battery guru, but he does the true ratings of these batteries. And for the love of God, do not go by the burst rate. Go by the continuous rate. Always. So, like this is a LG HB6. It's a 20 amp battery. I don't care what the wrap says. Don't go by the wrap. Go by what Battery Mooch says. He does more real world tests for vaping. You know, and a lot of the rappers will say 35 amp, 40 amp. There's none out there that do that much. Okay. So you need to build for the battery. So if you have a 20 amp battery, that's a 20 amp continuous battery, which is what majority of batteries are. I think the LG HB6 or LB6, or I have them right here. Let's see. Oh no, I don't. I think it's the LB6. I'll find that and I'll put it on the screen right here somewhere. I'll put it on the screen somewhere here. they are a 30 amp battery. They're a 30 amp continuous battery. That's the best battery. They're only 1500 milliamp hour, and typically that's how batteries go. If you get a higher discharge rate, you'll have a lower capacity. A higher capacity will be a lower discharge rate. But at any rate, as a rule of thumb, 0.4. 0.4. I don't care what batteries you have, 0.4 should be the lowest you ever build on a Noisy Cricket. There's really no reason to get a vape any hotter than that. I know a lot of people, oh, I gotta have a hot vape, hot vape. 0.4 is plenty hot. And for me, it's actually way too hot. I mean, I normally build, I'm like a 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. But a 0.4 is going to be plenty of power, and for just about any battery out there, even the most high current battery out there. So a 0.4 ohm build is about the lowest you want to go. I mean, if you're like 0.39, I get it, whatever, but 0.4 is what you're looking for. And that's with the best of batteries. When I run like these LG HB2s, I'm 0.5, 0.6. I won't go below that. That puts me, I think that puts it at like somewhere like around 18, 19 amps, which is, I mean, you're pretty close to 20 amps at that point. So you don't really want to go over that. So, those are the main safety things for the Cricket, is the hybrid connector, and people building just way insanely too low because they don't understand the difference between series and parallel. Series mech mods are kind of new to vaping. It's not like it's a brand new idea, but up until recently, it's mainly been parallel. And when the Cricket came out, I mean, people like flocked to it. But yeah, so that's what I have for basically for the Noisy Cricket. Again, battery doesn't really matter which way you put them in. If you put them in wrong, it's just not going to work. When you do put the batteries in, that's what determines where your hybrid or your button goes. Again, you could do it the other way. It's just not the preferred way of doing it. So wherever the positive is where your addy goes. Where the negative is, where your button goes. The other thing I would say is put the addy on first and then put your button on, because if you put the addy on, you could have a chance of, it just increases the chances of you over tightening and and shorting that addy out. But if you put the addy on, there's a little spring down in there. If you put the addy on first, put your batteries in, put the addy on, it's going to push that battery down and this battery up, and then when you screw your button on, you can kind of feel once it gets snug, and then you're done. You just take the little bit of rattle out and you're done. That way you don't over tighten it. It's still going to fire, but you won't increase the chances of shorting that positive pin on the battery. So 0.4 build. Addy goes on the positive battery. Make sure that the pin protrudes as much as possible on the atomizer. As a matter of fact, I bought 3 atomizers before I was comfortable with one, and the indestructible is what I ended up going with, because it's made by Wismec and Jaybo, and it's essentially made for the Cricket. I did try a Velocity, which supposedly had a protruding pin. Wasn't really protruding enough for me. I bought a Tsunami, which was Tsunami 22 by Geek Vape, which was again supposed to have a very protruding pin, but it wasn't really the one I had. It wasn't really. And then I got the indestructible, and it protrudes quite a bit. Plus, the peak is kind of wraps out. It kind of pops out around the positive pin, so I feel very comfortable running that on the Noisy Cricket. So, look, the Noisy Cricket can be a great mod. It's a lot of fun to use. I just use it rocking around the house here. I don't drip a whole lot, and when I do, I normally use this here at the house. But just be safe. I mean, there's no reason of pushing it. There's no reason of putting a 0.2 ohm build on it or 0.35 ohm build on it, when all you gotta do is add another wrap or two and you get the impedance up to a safer level. There's just no reason to be the next news article. I mean, for crying out loud, as much grief as we get in the vaping industry, the last thing we need is someone else's mod blowing up in their hand because they're doing something stupid. So that's basically what I got for the Noisy Cricket. Yeah, so that's what I got. So I probably should have put it together and vaped it, but I'm not in the mood. So anyway, that's what I got for you. Again, remember, join CASA.org. Follow the calls to action. Follow notblowingsmoke.org and fight for your vaping rights. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any additional comments, which I'm sure there will be, put them down below. Be sure to subscribe. And until next time, guys, keep your vape game strong. And I'll see you in the next one.